Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy DeYoung with Prophecy Today video. This week, we'll take a look at current events around the world that have significance to the end-time scenario that can be found in Bible prophecy. I'm here in Jerusalem, and the threat from Iran is at the top of the agenda for all political leaders, and especially on the mind of the incoming Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. But now there is another threat to be concerned about, other than the attack by Iran on Israel with a Shahab missile having a nuclear weapon of mass destruction warhead. Colonel Bob Maginnis is reporting that Israel could be totally shut down by Iran's EMP. Bob, what is EMP, and how could it affect Israel?
Jimmy, essentially what happens in an electromotive force is a release of a nuclear weapon in the atmosphere, say 40 miles up. And then the radiation from that explosion interacts with the air molecules to produce a high-energy electrons that spread across the Earth below and destroys the electronics. And so it pushes us back a century at a time, and we don't have all the computers and electronic systems that we rely upon, and it disables a country from being able to exploit its sophisticated military in the United States or Israel or anywhere these systems are. So it's a system that I believe that Iran is very well aware of, and there's plenty of evidence of that. I believe that their nuclear weapons are going to be used initially with that particular strategy in mind. And I believe that it really puts Israel on a short fuse, because if they were to employ this over Israel, for example, they wouldn't kill people, but they would fry any of the electronic systems that Israel depends upon, its sophisticated weapons, and of course its communications internally, and it would make it vulnerable to terrorist attacks and any conventional attacks that might be fostered by Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, or others in the region.
Bob Maginnis in Washington, D.C. David Dolan, longtime journalist in Jerusalem, is reporting reaction by Israeli officials about the call by Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei for all Muslims around the world to join Hamas in their struggle against Israel. David, are the Israeli officials concerned about this latest Iranian statement?
They're concerned for 4 or 5 years now by every statement that's being made by the Iranian leaders, and it goes back before that. The former supreme Muslim leader made the same statements: Israel's a cancerous tumor, it shouldn't exist, these sorts of things. More worrisome to them this week was a statement from a lower-ranking official in the Iranian regime saying that all of the nuclear targets in Israel, the nuclear reactor in Mona and several other reactors that Israel has, can be hit by Iranian rockets. Of course, the Israelis already do that, but that was even more worrisome as a threat than these other statements, that they were certainly not welcome in Israel.
David Dolan with the latest from Israel. Dr. Rob Congdon keeps us up to date on the European Union. Last week, Prime Minister Gordon Brown of Great Britain was in Washington and met with President Obama about the fix for the international financial crisis. Rob, it seems that these two leaders agreed on a global financial structure to fix the world economic crisis. Is that actually what happened?
Absolutely. It's been termed the Bretton Woods II, which was back in 1947. There was a meeting called Bretton Woods that established exchange rates around the world and focused on the U.S. dollar and trade. This new meeting, in which Gordon Brown has been talking about a new deal on a global level, is to unite the governments of the world into basically, I foresee, eventually a single world financial system. And I think you're going to see all the roots in it begin next month, not perhaps actual functioning, but the ideas planted. And Gordon Brown came here to try to be sure that the new president would be going along with that thinking.
When we think about the European Union, though, what makes Gordon Brown the spokesperson for something like this?
Well, that's kind of interesting, because there is the struggle between Gordon Brown and Germany's Merkel and France's Sarkozy for leadership in the EU. And Gordon Brown's background is economics. He's been the equivalent to our Secretary of Treasury in Britain. And so this is kind of his field, and he'd like to press ahead and show that he's the one who should be dealing with the financials.
Dr. Rob Congdon reporting on the Obama-Brown meeting in Washington, D.C., where they discussed the global financial crisis. Prophecy Today video takes a look at current events in light of biblical prophecy. And we did that today as we talked with Colonel Bob Maginnis, journalist Dave Dolan, and Dr. Rob Congdon. In my conversation with Bob, he brought out Iran's EMP, a capability of using a nuclear weapon to actually shut Israel down. Now, when you talk about Iran, you must remember that the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38 and verse 5, does mention Iran by her biblical name, Persia. Until 1936, Persia is what we know today as Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. But the prophetic passage written by Ezekiel indicates that Iran will be one of the major players that will align themselves together with a group of nations to come and try to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. That scenario seems to be coming better into focus. David Dolan gave us insight as to how the Israeli officials are reacting to Iranian Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's statement that the Muslim world should join with Hamas in their struggle against Israel. The ancient Jewish prophet Joel, in chapter 2 and verse 2, said that in the end times there would be a mighty army formed, in fact, the largest ever formed in the history of the world. As you study geopolitical activities today, you would have to realize that that army would be a Muslim militia who would make their goal the destruction of the Jewish state of Israel. And in fact, the text tells us that it will come to Jerusalem to wipe out the Jewish people. Another scenario found in God's prophetic word that seemingly is about to be fulfilled. My last conversation was with Dr. Rob Congdon, and we talked about the Obama-Brown meeting in Washington, D.C. to try to come up with a fix to the global financial crisis. This international financial crisis is of concern to almost every nation in this world. The European Union, of course, when you think about what they're doing and how they're playing a key role to come up with a solution for this crisis, seems to indicate that this is a stage-setting event putting in place the European Union, which I believe is the infrastructure for the revived Roman Empire, which is talked about in Daniel chapter 2 and chapter 7. But when you think about a global economic structure that would bring us out of this crisis, you must remember the book of Revelation, chapter 18, which indicates that Babylon, modern-day Iraq, will be the economic center of the world, and it will be the headquarters for the Antichrist in the last days, who will cause every single person on earth during the 7-year tribulation period to take the mark of the beast. Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 and 17 says all, if they want to be able to buy or sell, in other words, sustain life, they must take the mark of the beast. This global financial crisis seems to be setting the stage so that the Antichrist can come to power and make this all happen. The issues we've talked about today here on Prophecy Today video seem to be those current events that are setting the stage for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled. But let me remind you, the next event in God's calendar of activities is the rapture of the church, when Jesus will shout, the archangel will shout, the trump of God will sound, and those of us who know Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior will be caught up to be with him in the heavenlies. The truth be known, that rapture could take place at any moment. And having said that, there's nothing basically left for me to say, except let's keep looking up until